Many spend their days passively searching for something interesting to do. Others dig in and find it. While nothing is certain, anything is possible. And the anticipation leads you into action. Because it's here that adventures begin. Stories are unearthed. Secrets are revealed. Fortunes are found. Mysteries are solved. And the past is brought to life. Nothing valued is ever lost. It's simply waiting to be discovered. So here's the question. What are you looking for?
It's Thursday, it's 8 p.m, and it's the Big Detecting Show. And I must apologise. We have lost the Facebook feed for the time being. Facebook have had a new thing go on this week where they've adapted things and changed things. And the feed has sadly been kicked for the time being. We've tried to reset it up before, for the last few minutes, but unfortunately we've not got it. So we're entirely on YouTube, and we'll be uploading the feed, the show tomorrow as a normal show. Good evening, Adrian. Apologies for the wait.
Evening, Dave. How are you?
Well, I'm all right. How are you?
Yeah, you're good.
Lovely T-shirt. Marvellous. Where'd you get that from?
I got that from Detectingware UK.
What? Detectingwareuk.co.uk?
Detectingwareuk.co.uk. Yeah. I got that. Yeah. So very nice, very good quality, and only £10.
Do you like my hat?
Oh, sorry. I thought you said maggots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dirt fishing. Yeah, I can see what you've done there. No, this was sent to me by Online Magnets. We've set up as I mentioned last week, where if you quote ArcMD Mag 10 when you're purchasing your items, you'll get 10% off. So they sent me a hat this week. I like hats.
You want to get a head hat?
If you want to get a head hat. Are you well? Have you had a good week?
Yeah, been out detecting. No, I haven't. Yeah, just working from home, and it's a bit like Groundhog Day, isn't it?
It certainly is. Well, listen, Adrian, we usually have the news by now, obviously, but unfortunately, I was unable to get that done, and Aaron hasn't done one this week, sadly. So I'm sharing the post specifically just to go through the website a little bit to one specific article that's come out this week, because I want to set the records straight on behalf of the finder. So, Luke, if you could share the screen, that would be beautiful. Thank you very much. So, lots going on the website, as you can see. We've had a press release sent to us today by York City Council. Lots of things going on. Find UK. But in particular, was this. This is near West Wittering in Chichester. And Paul Smith, we communicated via Facebook because he found a human remains on the beach. Now, obviously, the police and everyone came, and the national newspapers picked it up and tried to make out that Paul was, in fact, metal detecting. And obviously, at the moment, we are restricted in UK, in England from that past time. And he just wants to set the record straight and show the actual images that are a bit grisly, but even so, these are the images of the find of the human remains. It was actually just a bit further on, about a mile or so from West Wittering, near to the harbour wall. So it has been identified as human remains, and the correct persons are going to be studying that to see what it actually is. So, as I say, I just wanted to set the record straight on Paul's behalf. Gruesome find, nonetheless.
Yeah, I think tonight's guest has found something gruesome as well, similar to that, sadly.
Tonight's guest? Do you mean the person that we've been longing to talk to for quite some time? Lara Maiklem. Good evening, Lara.
Hello. Hello.
Good evening. Apologies
Hi,
for the late. We've all got a bit Pete tongue behind the scenes with technology tonight, but we were able to.
Here. Yeah.
We're all on YouTube, so it's no bother. One thing you need to learn about me is that sometimes I forget to speak properly and I talk gibberish. So that often happens often, as we've just seen again. Lara, good evening. First and foremost, for people who haven't watched the show before, my name's Dave Sadler. I'm the co-editor of the Archaeology and Metal Detecting magazine and sadly the host of the Big Detecting Show. My co-host is...
Adrian Gaylor, writer for Treasure Hunting magazine on metal detectors and things that we use in our hobby.
There you go. So Luke prompted me to do that this evening, just to let people know exactly who we are. So now, Lara, it's your turn.
I'm Lara Maiklem, and I run Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages London Mudlark. And I've written a book called Mudlarking, which came out 2019, and the paperback came out last year.
And for anybody who hasn't got it, it's a damn fine book. Unfortunately, I read it via audiobook, so I didn't get to see the pictures. So then I had to go and buy the book.
Same here. Yeah, same here. Over 1,000 positive reviews on Amazon, I see, Lara. It's quite...
doing really well. And the paperback's coming out in America very soon. So, it's doing incredibly well. It's a Sunday Times bestseller. So, it's been popular.
Fantastic. So, obviously, I know because I've listened to the book, and Adrian knows because he's listened to the book. But for people who haven't read the book and don't know about your work, could you explain how you actually got into eventually mudlarking?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in the countryside, and I was sort of surrounded by fields, and I really enjoyed solitude. I like my own company. And then I moved to London in the early 90s, and anyone who's lived in London knows how frenetic it is. You know, it chews you up and spits you out. And so I started looking for somewhere quiet to go, and tried the parks and the gardens and places like that. And there did just seem to be too many people around. And then one day I was meeting a friend down on at a pub on the river, and I was a bit early, so I was hanging around. And it just struck me that there's this big sort of streak of wilderness that runs through the centre of the city, that's just lovely and quiet and peaceful, and it changes all the time. And the tides, it goes up and down. It brings birds and animals and nature into the city. And so I started walking along beside it, because you can walk for miles along the Thames Path. And it just became my go-to place, and I'd walk for miles along the Thames Path. And then one day I found myself at the top of a set of river stairs, and it was low tide. And I thought, well, what's stopping me from going down there? And for some reason, it hadn't really occurred to me that, you live in London and you don't really think about going onto the foreshore. I don't know why so many people don't. And so I decided, well, I'll go down, I'll see what's down there. And the first thing I found was a piece of clay pipe stem. And it just occurred to me that there'd be more. It made sense that there'd be more stuff down there. And so I went back, and every time I went back, I found something different. And it becomes addictive, probably like metal detecting. You never know what you're going to find. It's like a big lucky dip of stuff, and you never know what you're going to find next. And so that was about just over 15 years ago, and I've been going back ever since.
Fantastic.
I just had to take a quick call from Luke there. We do that quite regularly, just to say what's going on behind the scenes with the stream. So I did actually listen to everything you said. So the mudlarking itself, did that stem from anything else, i.e. a career or learning in history, etc., archaeology, anything like that?
No, well, I did anthropology at university. I did archaeology in my first year. I actually failed it. And so it wasn't my best subject, but I grew up on a farm, and I grew up in a very, very old house, and I've always had a fascination for history. My mum's sort of very into antiques, so she'd be dragging me around antique fairs every Sunday, and just sort of living in an old house, I think, just brings you. You just live with history, and we're so lucky in this country. We're surrounded by it. It's something fascinating about the past. But it's always been that sort of hands-on history, the way people live, not the battles and the dates and all the boring stuff you learn in history books. It's the real history, you know, the way our ancestors lived, and you know what's gone on before us that's brought us here. That's what's really fascinated me always. And when you go down onto the foreshore, really you're looking at other people's rubbish. 2,000 years of rubbish, and it's the sort of broken things and the things they didn't want, the discarded things that would never find, really most of it would never find its way into a museum. That it's the stuff like that that really fascinates me.
Lara, why is it that so much rubbish is there in the Thames? I know naturally it was a dumping ground, but is there any particular reason why it's suddenly washing up more now than ever?
Yeah, I mean, the river, I mean, like rivers everywhere, really, they've just been a useful receptacle, somewhere useful for people to throw their rubbish. So people have always thrown their rubbish into the Thames. But in central London, particularly, the foreshore is actually made of rubbish. Because if you think about a river in its natural state is V-shaped. And in the Thames, it's tidal. So twice a day, the tides go in and out. And at low tide, they needed a flat surface for the barges to sit on. So they'd build up the foreshore with rubbish to make these flat barge beds, and they'd bank it all in with revetments. And of course, the ships and the barges stopped coming around the 1960s, and people stopped repairing these barge beds, and the revetments have all broken, and they've been neglected. And so gradually, the river's starting to reclaim it. It's starting to turn itself back into a V shape, and it's eating away at these barge beds and all the rubbish and eroding it out. And certainly since sort of around 2000, when the clipper service started up, the clippers have really started to erode that away even more. They've got this sort of double-hulled construction that creates this enormous wake at the back that sort of eats into it, sucks it out, and then throws it back onto the foreshore. So it's that's exposing more and more stuff, and that's what most mudlarks are finding. Right.
I suppose as time goes on, with people not dumping rubbish on the Thames, are you finding? I mean, we'll get onto your finds because you've had some amazing finds over the years. How many years have you been doing it?
Just over 15 years I've been doing it. Yeah.
Are you finding over the last few years an increase in rubbish like baby wipes, plastics, which we're hearing a lot about on the news?
Sadly, yes. I mean, the river reflects the city, and it always has done. So, what we're finding is the rubbish that people threw away. The difference is that the rubbish that we're throwing away now is plastic. We're the plastic age, So what we're adding to this big mix in the river is plastic, and it's never going to go away. And it is a very clean river. I mean, it is, for an urban river, it is one of the cleanest in the world. You don't see the plastic in the city in central London. The plastic is a few inches below the surface of the river. So if you ever see those catchers that sort of sit in the river and they move around with the tide, they catch tons and tons of rubbish on every tide. One of the big problems is wet wipes, like you said. Raw sewage still goes into the river. And they're building the great big tideway tunnel at the moment, and that should stop that from happening. But all the time that the raw sewage is going into the river, and the reason it does is because we've still got in London the old Victorian sewers, and they just can't cope with the number of people who live in London anymore. So when there's a lot of rain, if they didn't let the sewage go into the river, it would all just bubble up into the streets and into people's houses. So they have to do it. And in all this sewage is wet wipes, and they're made of plastic. Even the ones that say they're flushable, they're not. They shouldn't be flushed. And they're building up. And in some areas, in Hammersmith in particular, they're catching together and they're creating actual islands. So our rubbish now is changing the actual geography of the river. People looking at what we're leaving behind, that dead, you're going to find old lighters, coffee cups, plastic, bottles, goodness knows what. Out in the estuary, you find so much rubbish. It tends to wash up a lot more out there, and there's banks of it out there. So there is a lot of plastic going in.
It's sad because we have the same issues with metal detecting. Some fields have got green waste on, so you'll find a mobile phone from 1998 and hell and all different kinds of plastic bottles and things on certain fields where the farmer, a lot of the time unintentionally, has known that it was in there. But it is a bit shocking. But the Thames is getting cleaner, and I follow you on Instagram, and I was quite shocked. I think it was a few months ago, or it might have been last year. You actually found a seahorse, didn't you?
I found a seahorse outside the globe. Yeah, there is a colony of seahorses, and they live in the Thames. They've actually found a colony out on the Isle of Dogs. But then a few years ago, there were some dead seahorses washing up a little bit further inland. So I think someone found one at sort of Limehouse, and then I found one at Bankside, and I think that's the furthest up that they found them. But it amazes me that there's seahorses living in the Thames. But I think they've counted 125 different species of fish now in the river. And given that the river was declared biologically dead in the 1950s, so that means there wasn't a single living thing between Gravesend and Vauxhall. There wasn't a single living thing. It's made a remarkable recovery. And once they get that raw sewage out of the river, it'll become even cleaner and even better. So it's getting better. We're getting there.
Right. Am I right in saying, Lara, that the Thames is actually one of the biggest archaeological sites in the world?
Well, this is debated. It depends who you talk to. I mean, it's certainly the longest, I think. I think it's fair to say that it's the longest archaeological site in the world. The biggest, look at Rome, the pyramids, but certainly the longest. Yeah. And and really and truly, given the way that most countries, the restrictions in most countries, we do have reasonably fair, open reign on it. We can go down there and we can search. You obviously need a permit. But it amazes me that we are allowed to go down and search it in the way that we are. But if you're not picking things up off the surface, then they will wash away. They will get damaged, and they will eventually wash away on the tides.
There's certain rules, isn't there? You're not allowed to dig, are you, on certain foreshores?
Well, it depends. Like I say, you need a permit from the Port of London Authority. And there's maps on the Port of London Authority website. So there are scheduled monuments. There's Queen Hythe. There's the Great Eastern launch place, which is out on the Isle of Dogs. And part of Greenwich is also a scheduled monument. The Tower Foreshore, that's all a scheduled monument. Nobody's allowed down there anymore. Then on the North Shore in the City of London, with a standard permit, you're not allowed to disturb the foreshore at all. On the south side, you're allowed to metal detect, and you can dig just a certain distance, not very deep, but you can dig a little way down. So there are restrictions, and they sort of vary depending on where you are.
Right.
And at what point of the Thames are you allowed, the normal person, to be able to go down to the foreshore themselves?
Well, the Thames is tidal from Teddington out to the estuary. The Port of London Authority ask you not to mudlark past the Woolwich barrier, the Thames barrier at Woolwich. So that still gives you a good distance to mudlark on.
And is that restricted at that point under the Port Authority scheme, or is that more open to individual mudlarkers?
No. It's all Port of London Authority right out to the estuary, but the Port of London Authority are asking people not to go beyond the barrier now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll look after the break at some of the images that you've of finds that you've made, and there's some fantastic things, absolutely stunning. And obviously not just yourselves made some fantastic finds, but a lot of other people. We have a guest on the show quite regularly called Steve Tompkinson, and he actually pulled up a Roman pot, more or less intact. And I've seen, as Adrian said on your own site, some stunning things.
Yeah. Is that Steve Tomlinson?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Steve. Yes. Yeah, no, it's incredible. It's amazing what you find, and the great thing about the Thames is that it preserves things so well because the mud's anaerobic, so you can pull things out of it like leather and even cloth, leather and wood and all sorts of things that just wouldn't survive in fields. So it's amazing the stuff that you can pull out, and the sort of the level of preservation is incredible.
Mm.
Wow. What Lara? What's you probably get asked this a lot. What's the most bizarre thing you found where, when I go metal detecting, occasionally I'll dig something up and think, how the hell has that got there? I mean, you're on a river, so naturally waste and stuff, but have you ever found anything that has made you think, why and how has that got there?
Yeah, I mean, you find all sorts of weird things because people throw things into rivers because they think it's sort of going to take it away and it's gone forever. And they don't sort of think about it washing up a little bit later. So some of the modern stuff you find is really weird. I found curses and spells and strange things like that. I found a massive bin bag full of marijuana. I found the chamber of a gun, and the handle had been sawn off, and the barrel. So I found that. It's all the stuff that people, hundreds and hundreds of mobile phones and laptops and all of that sort of stuff that people want to get rid of. And all sorts of weird kinky stuff as well. Yeah, loads of stuff.
I did find that in the middle of a field, one of those things, but we won't go into that.
Hey, Adrian, why are you blushing?
It wasn't mine. Because jewellery and socks and things like that from crimes and people on the run, and being central London, obviously guns and stuff. It must be really interesting what you do find.
All sorts of things, knives. You found a lot of engagement rings and wedding rings under bridges, mainly, where people have stood and thrown their jewellery off bridges in fury or pain.
Right, cool, blimey. And I suppose, do you get, I call them fays. Have you watched The Detectorists?
Yes.
Yeah. Have the people found anything yet? Do you get a lot of people come down to you and start, what are you doing? Have you found anything? Why do you do it? Do you get many of those?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
The thing they shout down from the river wall, you see, is because they've got a peanut gallery up there. And, they sort of stand, especially when you're near a pub and everyone's a bit drunk. And then they think it's really funny to shout that. But the good thing is that they very rarely want to get their shoes muddy, so they don't actually come down. One very early morning, there were two very, very drunk Russians came down, and then they thought it would be funny to start sort of, I don't know what they were doing, but they were so drunk they could hardly stand. And it all got a little bit scary and not very nice. And I called the police, and the police came along and got rid of them for me. But usually they don't come down and bother you, but they can stand up on the on the river wall, and sometimes they throw things at you. That's nice as well. Always nice to have things thrown at you. But like bottles and glasses and things like that. It's usually drunk people. You see, it's in central London, so you've got, when you're out in the field, you haven't got all these people around you. In central London, you're always being sort of stared at.
So you're like an animal in a zoo.
A bit like that, yeah. Sometimes you can attract quite a crowd as well. You've got a crowd of people up there, and the usual thing they shout out is, "Have you found any treasure?" And they ask me if I've lost my car keys. That's the other one.
I think you've actually you're one of the people responsible bringing mudlarking more into the public eye. There was the programme several years ago. I think it was called River Hunters with Johnny Vaughan. Which obviously brought it onto the mainstream via the Discovery Channel. But in more recent years, yourself and a few other people, I think one was called Nicola White, perhaps, with YouTube, with social media, have obviously bringing some of these things more to the public eye.
Yeah, I mean, I started posting stuff online in 2012, and it was, I think it's called Mud Men on the television program, and Mudmed was on, but nobody was really posting anything online on social media, and so I was the first person to start posting online, and since then it's been great. Everybody posts their stuff now, so it's really nice way to share things, and it's good to share. It's good to share the stuff you find. There's no point in finding stuff and sticking it in a drawer and forgetting about it. Things should be shared with other people, so social media is a great way to do that.
Certainly is. Well, just to remind everybody that in about 8 minutes or so, we'll be going over to the Diggers Dips live draw. Then we'll have the adverts, and after the break, we'll come back and we'll be looking at some of Lara's finds from the past few years, which are absolutely magnificent. In fact, Lara, what happened this afternoon after you sent me those images? Adrian sent me the PDF version of the 5-page spread from Treasure Hunting magazine from last year. So it looks better than me scrolling through images. So we're going to go that way, I think, instead.
Okay.
So, as I say, that'll be after the break in about 15 minutes or so.
Lara,
sorry.
Dave.
No, yourself, sir.
Lara, a burning question I want to ask. Have you thought about metal detecting?
Do you know what? I have. I've got a metal detector. I bought it years and years ago, and I've used it 3 times. I've used it once in my mum's back garden, once in someone else's back garden, and once in a field. And so I have had a go at metal detecting. And I'm afraid, and you know, I'm sorry about it. I didn't like the beeping. I couldn't get into it. It wasn't for me. But I have got one, but I don't use it.
Because you actually met Bill Wyman, didn't you? The famous.
I did. Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Who actually designed a metal detector? Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that. No.
He designed one with a British company called Seascope, called the. I've forgotten the name of it now. Someone will post it in the chat. But yeah, was he a nice guy to chat with? Because he bought your book, didn't he?
He did. I signed a book for him. He talked to me about metal detecting. He lives on a farm, I think, and he detects on his own land. So he's very into metal detecting. So we had a bit of a chat about that. Yeah.
So you can't take a metal detector on the foreshore, is that right?
No, you can. In certain places, but you need to check. Like I say, you have to check the your permit and the rules and regulations. But you can certainly on the South Shore, you can take a metal detector.
Right. Okay.
But there's so much metal on the foreshore. I mean, I don't know much about. I think you need a very good one. I don't know much about metal detectors, but there's lots of lead and lots of iron.
Yeah, probably not that much fun. We're talking a lot about the Thames, but have you mudlarked on other rivers and stuff in the country, or just the Thames?
I've mudlarked on the Medway, but to be honest, the Thames is the best river in the world to mudlark on. It's got that perfect combination of tides and history, and intense human habitation, and I can't think of anywhere else in the world that could match it. So no, I haven't, apart from just wandering along on holiday and things. But no, not really. No, it's the Thames for me all the way.
Right. No,
as I mentioned to Lara before, Adrian, that we've got the River Dane that runs through Congleton, and there's a Dane foreshore, which is Dane in pasture, which is quite a walk away. A beauty spot a lot of people go to, and it's like a little beach, to be honest. And we go down there, we sit down there, take the dogs for a walk. But excuse me, Archeo boy, as you know, my 8-year-old absolutely loves having a fiddle about and what have you. And he keeps, every time we go down there, he comes back with so much pottery. He has a bag full. There's a bag full in the garden. I've said, so what we'll do, mate, we'll make a little mosaic with all your pottery at some point. So for away from the Thames, what a fantastic thing to go out and do with your kids.
It's great. And, almost every river will have something in it, even tiny rivers, because, like I say, people use them as dumps. So, if you can get into a river or look around a river, you will find bottles. There's always loads of bottles in rivers. So you can find things.
Well, I've got a multitude of questions coming in for after the break, when we're obviously going to have a look at the PDF and what have you. Let me just check. There's 2 minutes 43 before the draw. Now, just to explain to you, Lara, the draw, it's done by a group called Diggers Depths, a company called Diggers Depths. And basically, it's the live draw. People come onto our Big Detecting Show Facebook group every week. We put a post up. People put their names in, and as long as they're a member of the site, they get automatic entry into the draw as long as they specifically put the name down, tag somebody. So I think we've got something like 45 people. So there's 3 prizes a week. And what we do for fun we have our own guesses at the numbers, and everybody else does in the comments as well. And generally we're right. So you get the benefit of joining in tonight and also announcing the winners if you can see them as they come, because sometimes people can't see them. So all will be groovy. So I'm gonna share the screen now, please, Mr. Higgins, and we'll go over to the draw. Now that's in 1 minute 30 or so. Let me just refresh that, because Chris always tells me off. So tonight the first prize is Cleaning Coins and the Artifacts book, which is an absolute stunning book. Following prize for second place is 15 Diggers Dips tokens and 10 Diggers Dips tokens for the third prize. Now don't forget, at midnight on the 31st of the month, the current game, Diggers Daily Dips, ends, and at midnight next month starts. And I've had a sneak preview. Chris sent over an image today of the new field, and it looks absolutely dandy. So I'm sure you'll be all looking forward to that. I've just had a text also off Scotty B asking me to remind people about Detecticon weekend tickets, and his words were, just to let you know, there are 32 full weekend tickets with camping left for the event this year. And hopefully we do get to go ahead with events this year, obviously through COVID. And I hope you are all looking forward to finally getting out. It looks like, well, schools are going back in another 4 weeks or so. So it looks like the lockdown's going to continue till then. So come March, at least it'll be spring, and all them lovely things that are under the ground will still be there. And I'm sure the Thames foreshore will be absolutely strewn with artifacts when that time comes. So the draw's starting now. 45 entrants. Laura, pick a number between 0 and 45.
39.
39. Adrian?
11.
And I'll go for 42.
I see in the chat Karen Becker's hoping that Detectable is this year. So fingers crossed that happens.
I think we're all hoping that Detectable happens this year. Oh, it's a low one, and none of us are right. 7.
4.
3.
Oh,
yes.
Lara's got the button.
Are you able to see that, Lara?
Yeah.
The first prize of the Cleaning Coins and Artifacts book is to Weezoofer.
Interesting name.
Or it could be Wezo Offer.
Oh.
I'm going to have to do anagrams. Anyway, 12.
19.
17.
Oh.
None of us are right. 32.
33.
Oh my good Lord. She's got 2.
Lara, do you do the lottery?
No, I don't. I should do though, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
The winner of the 15 Diggers Dips tokens, which will be credited to your account, is Norfolk Girl. Laura, ladies first.
27.
Adrian.
Does that mean I'm a lady more than you?
Yes.
29.
19.
Oh.
4. 20. So that's Deborah 27B with the 10 Diggers Dip tokens. So you'll all get an email from Diggers Dips letting you know what's what. And now we'll go to our adverts.
I'm Dave D, and you're watching XP Team USA.
Welcome back, everybody. And Liverpool are winning. Woohoo! Always play on a Thursday night. Shut up, you southerner.
West Ham.
Shandy drinking, so like that Kaywood bloke.
Yeah, Kaywood. He'll be getting excited about West Ham. Yeah.
He's lucky. He wants revenge at the weekend. Apparently, he messaged me earlier. Anyway, it's good to see all the people in the chat room. If anybody has any questions, please pop them down and we'll try and read them out. I've got an abundance here anyway. Chris has mentioned me and said, Deborah, who won a prize, her email keeps bouncing back. Can you contact Diggers Dips directly, please? Diggers Dips. Yeah, that's right. So Deborah, who won the prize in the competition tonight in the prize draw, can you please give Diggers Dips a shout? Thank you very much. And of course, yes, people in the chat room, Tony, Rob Random, Scotty B, Karen Becker, Steve Shorters, spoke to him today at length. Just to let people know as well that the Archaeology Metal Detecting Magazine and Big Detecting Show shop has been shut down for the time being because we're taking everything away from America and Albania because people who did want merchandise, I thought, were paying far too much. And we have another source that we'll be announcing in full in the coming weeks. And Adrian's going to be doing the images for me properly tomorrow. Don't forget as well, tomorrow The Dig launches on Netflix, the film about Sutton Hoo, which Lara's actually seen today on pre-release. Can I add? So, and also in the chat room tonight, hi to Kaylee from History with Kaylee, who will be our guest in 2 weeks, all the way from Holland, which isn't really that far, but she's not allowed over because there's a COVID restriction. So anyway, Lara, back to you. Where should we go next? Shall we let's bring up these images. I've brought the PDF into play in the background, I think, allegedly. Oh, that's why. Update, and it's gone on Microsoft Edge, that's why. So, Luke, I would like to share the screen again, if I may. It's lovely having a wonderful producer, Lara. So, and I sussed out to do lots of things on here before. I probably won't be able to do it now, of course. Was it that? No. Was it that one? No. Was it that one? There it is. Go away now. So, we can all see what I'm looking at, Adrian?
Yes, yeah. Zoom in a bit. If you could zoom in.
Certainly, no problem. Over here, you. So, Lara, an Iron Age pot.
Yes.
How did you actually identify that? I mean, obviously, looking at it to me, it looks like, from the image, a lump of concrete.
Yeah, it's lying upside down, obviously. It's an Iron Age pot. And if you look at it, you can see that hasn't been made on a wheel. It's been made by coiling it, the clay around. Of course, it's been recorded on Portable Antiquities database. And I found that out near the estuary, and it's a site of a sort of Roman kilns, but the pottery goes back even further. So you can find some amazing things out there. But that was amazing, an amazing find.
And fully intact.
Fully intact, yeah. It's absolutely. It's actually behind me right now, but yeah.
And to think of all, how many thousands of years it's took battering for, and it's still a perfect condition. Obviously, apart from the wear and tear of the Thames, it's still a pot.
It's amazing. There is lots and lots of shards of pottery out there. So once they're out of the mud and they're that exposed, I don't know how long they last. But obviously, quite a lot have been beaten up. But you do occasionally find, a complete one, which is pretty cool.
Fantastic. And a lovely sight. I mean, there can't be many people who actually do go down to the foreshore. And I think this image itself, with the haze, the misty haze, and all the boats tied up and all the lights come on, it just gives it a little bit of ambience.
It does. I mean, it's just there is so much ambience down there. And, I find, especially when you go at night, that's when the real sort of the ghosts come out of the foreshore. It's a real feeling. You have a real feeling that you're sharing the space with so many people have been there before you. But that's Greenwich foreshore, and the posts you can see there, the remains of medieval jetty. Right. That was when, because Henry VIII had his favourite palace there before it was knocked down, and the Naval College was built, designed by Christopher Wren. And so that is pretty much all that's left of the old Tudor palace that was once there. But I used to live in Greenwich, and it's a place that I've been to loads and loads. And it's one of my favourite spots.
Fascinating. And when you say the ghosts come out, I know what you meant by the terminology, but have you ever been in a situation that you could potentially suggest, now that was a little bit peculiar?
No, I honestly haven't. It's not a scare. It's not. It's a really friendly place, the foreshore. It's really.
No, I mean, in the sense that a lot of people suggest that they've seen ghosts, paranormal activity on the foreshore and whatnot. There's never been anything like that's made you turn your head and think, what's that about?
No, it hasn't. No, nothing weird's happened to me like that.
Apart from Russian men.
Strange Russians. Yeah, strange drunk Russians and dead bodies. Yeah, that's about the only strange things that have happened to me.
Now, so if we go, obviously I'll go to that side of the page in a moment, but glass buttons, and it's so fantastically, you can see the design perfectly on all of these finds, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful. I mean, when you go mudlarking, what you're looking for is anything that's, perfectly round, or it's got, sort of straight lines, anything that doesn't fit with what's around it, because, nature doesn't tend to make too many perfect circles. And so obviously with something like that, it's the colour that stands out, and it's just pretty. It just looks lovely. It's nothing that special, but it just does look. It's just a piece of history, isn't it?
As a metal detectorist, I still get the same buzz about finding a musket ball, and I've got hundreds. So I can completely appreciate that. Now the next find, I'm so happy that Adrian's actually sent this over today, because it's got it tells you what it is, so I don't have to.
It is, yeah,
and that's.
This is interesting, because I found it and I thought it was Roman, and it was recorded on Portable Antiquities as Roman until someone from the Museum of London, who'd been studying the medieval glass, Islamic glass, saw it, and it matches perfectly some other pieces of glass vessel that have been found further into the city, and so they think it may have come from Spain or somewhere not too far away, and it's late medieval Islamic glass. So it's quite very, very rare to find something like that in London. So it's even better than finding something Roman.
Now the Jew's harp, I'm sure, Adrian, you may have picked up something not dissimilar in your travels.
I bought one when I was 13. About it.
But there are a lot of metal detectorists who do find Jew's harps.
Yeah, definitely. It's quite a bizarre find, really. It comes up quite often, I'd say. I found 3 or 4, not loads, but yeah.
And are they common on the foreshore?
They are common on the foreshore. I think, you can imagine the sailors sitting on the ships playing them, can't you? Or people sitting on the riverside playing them. The great things about this one that I found, it's still got the iron tongue in the middle. So I don't know how many of those survive in the field.
Never found one with a bit in the middle.
Lovely little acorn button.
Lovely little acorn button. You can see where it just wore out, didn't it, at the top? Yeah. That's one of my favourites, actually. I like that.
This is bone.
Bone, yeah. This is a bone Roman game counter. I've got quite a few of these now. I think I've probably got about 9 of them. And one of them's got a scratch on the back. So apparently it was illegal to gamble in Roman times. It was okay to bet on horse racing or gladiator fighting, but it was considered poor form to bet on games of chance. You could only bet on skill, and so it said that they would scratch a number on the back, and it could have been an illegal gambling token, or it could just have been a counting token. reused. So so you can find quite a few of those if you know where to go. And the thing next to it is Roman as well. That's an auxiliary soldier's sword shape, and it's made of ivory. And I think it's it's the only second complete one that's been found in England.
Wow.
So that was.
This is a big difference between mudlarking metal detecting, is that the next several finds are all something that you wouldn't find with a metal detector. And it just goes to show the ability to find things with your eyes only. Look at the glass eye, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, that little tiny bone die, I mean, that's tiny, just really, really tiny. And it's got the ring and dot pattern. It could be medieval, it could be Roman. They're quite hard to date. But you can date them from counting the numbers on opposite sides. Because in early medieval times they didn't add up to, is it 7? So you can date them like that. But I've got two bone ones of those and a lead one.
Wow.
With the glass eye, Lara, have you
Yes.
been able to date that?
No, I mean, I think it's probably, it could be anything. I mean, they still make them. There's a man who still makes them exactly like that by hand. That is a beautiful, beautiful piece of work. It's got tiny, tiny little veins on it. They made huge numbers of them after the First World War because so many people got their eyes damaged. So I have no idea. It's anywhere between the end of the sort of 1800s to today. It could be, as modern as today.
And it must have been quite a shock for that to be literally looking out of the soil at you.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that at all. That was it was literally looking back at me.
Was it actually that, as you see that photo with the eye facing up?
Yeah, it was just like that. That's how it was when I found it.
God.
Yeah. Yeah, just like that in the gravel.
And you do record everything via the portable antiquity scheme.
I do, yes. I record with my local finds liaison officer.
He must love you.
I know. Although I haven't for a while. I've got a lot to take to him because of COVID.
Now, this image is obviously the underneath of something on there.
Yes, that is. Let me try and remember that is. That's Custom House, I think. You know where Old Billingsgate Fish Market is?
Yeah.
Yes.
On the river. It's underneath there.
And do you find much underneath these structures?
It depends where you go. Yeah, you can do. I mean, you can walk for miles and miles and not find anything, and you can concentrate on one tiny patch and find loads and loads of stuff. So it really, everything, it all changes on every tide. That's the great thing about it.
And the next image is something obviously you weren't able to carry home.
No, there's loads of stuff that, really shouldn't be taken off the foreshore. It's, some stuff belongs to the river. And this is one of them. It's an old cartwheel, and they've used it as a mooring for the barges and for the ships. So you find quite a lot of these mooring posts. There's also a place in Rotherhithe where you can find whale bones that they've reused and stuck into the foreshore for supporting ships while they were mending them.
You see, Adrian, this is something that I'm sure you yourself, as well as I, we don't appreciate the likes of these finds. We don't hear about them until the likes of Lara bring them to our attention.
I think what gets me is when we go metal detecting, we detect a field, and if it's rubbish, we'll move on to another field. Whereas Lara's got the same permission as such, but a different landscape every time the tide comes in and out.
Yeah.
It must. I mean, do you find that, Lara? Do you find certain areas are more prominent than others after the tide's gone out, or is it just random?
Yeah, I mean, every area is slightly different depending what's happened there. If you think about it, you're going to find more things where there were more people. So central London, there's an abundance more things to find, and the things go back 2,000 years. If you go to Wapping or Rotherhithe, then the finds tend to be associated with shipbuilding and shipbreaking. If you're in Vauxhall, there was the Dalton factory there, so you find things that are a lot of pottery and kiln furniture and things like that. So depending where you are, the finds really do vary. And then on every tide, they vary. I've been standing by the water's edge, and I've had a beautiful jetton it's dropped it at my feet. So it literally washes in and out with the tide. So a lot of mudlarks will stand right on the edge. You'll see them standing right on the edge of the water, literally following the water in and out as it flows, and it's constantly washing things out. So every wave will uncover something different.
Naturally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think one of my favourite stories from your book, Lara, was the one with the font, and you were finding a number of fonts that somebody had been trying to recreate the certain fonts ever since, and somebody has now done it.
Yeah, it's Dove's font, and there's a great story behind it. There was a man around the turn of the century, part of the arts and crafts movement, and he and another man created this font, and his name was Cobden Sanderson, and he thought this font was the most beautiful thing he'd ever created, and he only wanted to use it for printing books like the Bible and the works of Shakespeare, and he became increasingly obsessed with this font and impossible to work with, and the two men fell out. And the other man, Emery Walker, he wanted to buy Cobden Sanderson out. He didn't want him to use the font anymore. He wanted half of everything. And Cobden Sanderson just didn't want this font being used on anything. He, as far as he was concerned, he owned it. And so to stop anyone from using it, he threw the whole lot into the river to get rid of it. And he did it. It took him, I think, 9 months, and there was tons of lead type. And he was 76 when he did it. And he threw it all into the river at Hammersmith, and it was just vanished. And then fast forward to about 10 years ago, a man called Rob Green came along, and he's a type designer, and he wanted to use Doves. He couldn't find it anywhere. He tried to recreate it from printed material, and it wasn't good enough. So he decided he'd go down to the river and try and find it and recreate it that way. And I met up with Rod, and we had a chat, and I decided to go down there and have a look myself. And Rob, all in all, I think he's found 60 pieces, and he's been searching a long time. And I went down and I found a comma, and that's my piece of Dove's font. My publishers set part of the book in Doves, and it really is a beautiful type. If you're into typefaces, it's lovely.
It definitely is. My background's reprographics. When I was younger, I studied reprographics, and I know the Doves font. And you can actually buy it today online for, I think, £45 or £49. And it is a lovely font, really, really nice.
Yeah, that's Rob. He recreated it. He's working on because there isn't an italic version, so he's working on the italic version at the moment.
Wow, fantastic! That just shows that's amazing, though, isn't it? You love a font so much, you're prepared to dive into the Thames to unearth and then recreate it. What a story! There's a book there, isn't there? Really.
Well, the man who threw it all in, when he died, he was cremated, and his ashes were put into a little nook in the wall at the end of his garden that overlooked the river. And then there was the big flood in 1928, and it carried away his ashes. So his ashes are down there with the font somewhere.
Wow,
it's a great story.
Yeah, interesting.
Now, obviously, we've got a George II halfpenny. It's fantastic condition. I mean, some of the ones that we put out around Adrian, nowhere near that.
Yeah, that I found. I was mudlarking with Dan Snow, just before lockdown last year, and we found that, and it's in great condition, really good condition. But it's like the coins, like everything else. It's just it preserves things so well.
Beautiful. Now, the next one, the Sri Lankan cut garnet. Now, obviously a brilliant find, but how was it determined that it was a Sri Lankan cut?
It's been looked at by an expert. I actually took it to it's from Sri Lanka, and it's a cut gun. It's a modern one. I took it to Boodles on Bond Street to have for someone to look at. It is it's modern. I think it's probably an offering. We get quite a lot of modern offerings, Hindu offerings in the river, and all sorts of things get thrown in. And I think it's probably from that.
Wow.
I've actually produced an article on Jettons this week because, along with two friends, we've discovered 68 Jettons at a certain site, medieval Jettons, and they should be classed as a hoard, but because they're not money, they're not classed as a hoard. But I love Jettons, and that again is in fantastic condition.
Yeah, that that Jetton, yeah, that's exactly how I found it. I took that picture. So that, you know, that's how stuff washes up.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Clay pipes. I've never found one. I found lots of pieces. I actually ended up buying one from an antiques dealer because I just absolutely adore them. But again, it must be something that you find regularly. Yeah,
you always come home with the clay pipe, almost always. The little tiny one in the middle, that's about as early as they get. That's about 1580. And you can see from the size of the bowl, it's tiny, tiny because tobacco was expensive when they first started bringing it over from the New World. And then as they grew more tobacco, it got cheaper. And so the bowls got bigger. And so that's how you date them. But I love them. I absolutely love them. And, you know, they're not throwaway. People say they're throwaway. But, you know, they smoke them they reuse them until really they were too short to smoke anymore. So, you know, they were definitely used more than once.
That's interesting, Dave, what you were saying about the size of the pipes. That's very interesting. And I'm surprised you've never found one, Dave. I find maybe it's a southerner thing that we smoked more than people up north. But I find, not with my metal detector, but just on the surface in fields. And I find a lot near riverbanks, which is whether it's people sat there to have a smoke and a rest. But yeah, I find them quite a lot, especially ones with detail on. I'm trying to think of the name. There's a common name.
Memorial ones.
Yeah. I find quite a few of those. I love them. Yeah, I mean they're preserved so well, and the burn marks. You just think, you know, someone sat there and that was their pride and joy, smoking away.
Yeah.
Shouldn't think about it too much nowadays with the risks of smoking, but almost makes me want to smoke.
Am I correct in saying that the bore size as well is related to the price of tobacco?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yeah. So the smaller the bowl, the more expensive the tobacco. So
the bowl, the stem, the board on the stem.
Oh, the stem. Oh, well, I've read different things. I've read that it was an American research that they decided that the larger the hole down the middle, the older the pipe. And then other archaeologists have said, no, that's rubbish. You can't date them like that. I don't know. But I do know that if you find particularly the Georgian ones, the bigger ones on the Thames, they're usually packed full of mud. And if you take the mud out very carefully, you can sometimes find tobacco leaves at the bottom.
Wow.
Yeah, I've had that. Yeah, I've had that. Got very excited. That's why I said it wanted to make me smoke it again. But no, I shouldn't.
No, because you're not Gandalf.
Or it could possibly be full of crack or something bizarre. I'd end up in a real mess.
Yeah, I found those on the foreshore as well.
Yeah, I bet you. Yeah.
Now, I've never heard of a Victorian frozen Charlotte doll.
Yes, they were really popular. Lots of them were made in Germany, and they're these little tiny dolls that were sold at fairings, really, sold for a penny at the fairs. They were also put into puddings, and you know the person who got it was the lucky person, as long as you didn't sort of break your tooth on it. I suppose. But they're just really, really cheap children's toys. They date from sort of mid to late 1800s through to the early 20th century. And they're named after, there was a popular American poem that was turned into a ballad, and it was about a girl who went to a ball and refused to wear a dress and froze to death on the sleigh ride. And because they look like little tiny sort of frozen people, they call them frozen Charlottes.
Wow.
I've learned something there.
Yeah.
Now, when you mentioned before about shoes and soles issues and what have you, being well, I don't need to say anymore. Look at the condition of that. It's, you know, how many years that's been in the River Thames, and it comes out like that. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's there's a place that I go to sometimes, and you do find a lot of leather shoes there, and it's usually bits of leather shoe, or you pull it out and it won't be complete. And then one day I was there and I pulled this one out and it just came out in one piece. And inside you could just see the outline of the owner's foot, the little heel and the toes. And it was just so perfect. And it took me 2 years to find someone to conserve it professionally, because the Museum of London didn't want it. They've got so many shoes. So I had to find somebody to help me do it. And
this was included in the book, wasn't it?
Yes, it is. The story.
Yes, I remember now,
Yeah. It was eventually it was conserved at the at Cardiff University. They've got a conservation course, and it was given to a student there. And they've actually got another piece of mine at the moment. They've got a bone, a Roman hinge from a Roman box. It's made of bone, and it's still got the wooden dowel going through the middle.
Wow.
Absolutely fascinating. Where are we? We'll go back over this side, shall we? And again, some stunning little finds.
Yeah, Bellarmine's German stoneware. You find loads of those. Obviously, everyone's looking for the face, and that's what everyone Mudlark wants to find, is a face. I haven't found a complete one yet, complete bottle, but I've got lots and lots of faces. In the middle, that's an ivory sundial, pocket sundial. So that's quite rare. And they found one almost exactly the same in Jamestown in America. Wow. So that's old.
So the cartouche from German stoneware, would that be, I'm not saying directly connected to that particular Bellarmine bottle, but would that have been on something similar?
Yes, it would have had the face on the neck, and then a cartouche, a sort of the coat of arms of either of the town where it was made or the merchant it was made for, or it would have had a stylized cartouche, a flower or something like that on the belly, on the sort of fat bit.
Now that image again. Well, you even find the kitchen sink there.
Yeah. Sorry, going back to the bottles. What was the what's the face on the bottle? What's that go back to?
Well, the face is actually it's the wild man of the woods from European folklore. But at the time, it said the reason they're called Bartman bottles in Germany, and that basically means bearded man. But over here, they're called Bellarmines, and the reason they're called Bellarmines is allegedly because it was supposed to have looked like a Catholic cardinal called Cardinal Bellarmine, and it said that the Protestants enjoyed smashing the bottles to see his face in pieces, and that's why you find so many of them. That's probably rubbish. The reason you find so many is because they were imported in such huge numbers, and they were used in taverns and homes all over London. So it stands to reason that you find so many on the foreshore.
Right. Oh, thanks.
And again, back to this picture of the kitchen sink. You can't get much of a better view of London, especially being away from the maddening crowds. It's just absolutely stunning to be able to look at Tower Bridge, the Shard, everything else on that side of the river. It's stunning. It is.
You get a really different perspective on the city from down there. Standing almost under London Bridge, Tower Bridge is quite amazing.
Very tranquil, I bet, and relaxing.
It is. Yeah, it's nice and quiet, calm. God, there's loads of pictures here, isn't there? Good grief.
So we've got the Turk's Head pipe. We spoke about pipes.
Yes.
The gold lace end.
Yes, that's part of a mini hoard that's coming up on part of the foreshore that I shall not name. And lots of pieces have been found from that. They don't know why it's there, whether it looks like scrap gold because almost all of it's been squashed or broken. And I've donated that to the Museum of London. They're trying to collect as much as they can. And hopefully they'll put it in a display at some point.
A nice ceramic toy whistle of it. Is it a cow or something?
It's a strange sort of mythical creature. There again, they've got one almost exactly the same in the Museum of London. It's got long ears and it's got a hooded rider holding onto its ears, and you sort of blow up its bum and it makes a whistle. But yeah.
Who would have thought to have tried that?
You'd like that, Dave, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I found that at Greenwich actually. So it's possible it had something to do with the royal palace there.
We've got the dress hook, which again, apart from one little bit snapped off, perhaps perfect condition.
Yeah, no, that's the way it was made. It's literally just looped round and tied with a bit of wire. Yeah, it's beautiful that.
Roman bead.
Melon bead, yep. That washed up on a wave just at my foot. That was good. 16th century posy ring. that was a nice find. That was black when I found it. I didn't realize it had writing inside for a while until I cleaned it up. That was another thing that just washed up.
Do you do your own cleaning of your finds?
I do. I don't clean them a lot, only if they're really, really, you just can't see what they are. So I've sort of learned the hard way with a few things. I use electrolysis on some things, but most stuff comes off the foreshore quite clean. So
I'm going to have to put you in communication with a friend of the show called Graham Dempsey, who owns a company called the Composite Pencil Cleaning Company, and it's like your normal pencil, your click pencil. It's like that, but it's got a graphite tip that comes out, different textures, different hardness, and obviously you can clean the fines with that. But he's also got a multitude of other things to clean and conserve as well that he's putting into play, and they are a bit of a game changer, aren't they, Adrian?
I'll tell you what, he's not the sort of guy who's just found a load of stuff and put it in bottles and made a pen. His background is composites, so his full-time job, he's working in composites, and if you talk to him about the composite technology, you get completely lost. But he does a preservation wax, he does a powder to clean coins, but it's all organic and environmentally friendly as well. So not that you could drink it, I don't know, but I use it on my Roman coins. And funny enough, I found a coin yesterday when I was cleaning out my things, really, really grotty coin. I thought maybe it's Roman, and I cleaned it up, and it was a silver denarius. Because one of the things we get that you don't get, Lara, is the chemicals that have been used on the fields in the 50s, 60s, and 70s cause problems with our fines and ruin them, whereas your fines are encased, aren't they? That word you said, without air, what's it called?
Anaerobic. Yeah.
So it's literally encased and sealed, isn't it, from the day it was dropped and preserved. And we're not, where I live in Essex, we get quite a bit of clay, which sometimes helps, but the cleaning pencils that he does are really, really good, and it's nice. It's very therapeutic for helping.
Yeah. It is. It's not hard. I've got my dental light with the built-in magnifier, and it is very, very therapeutic. Pewter toys, again, gorgeous little things.
Yeah, they preserve beautifully. That's a little dripping tray at the top, and a bit of a plate, and the back of a watch. Or no, it's a toy watch. And I don't know what that bottom thing is. It's definitely a pewter toy, but I don't know quite what it's supposed to be. I've got two of them. But yeah.
Now, one thing I've seen more than regularly, obviously, of your own and other people who mudlark, that of handmade dress pins, and they fascinate me. I know they're not much, but they're absolutely fascinating.
They fascinate me. I can't get enough of them. Do you know? Yeah, you can pick them up by the 100. They're everywhere. If you know where to look. Once you see one, you can't stop seeing them, and they're made of copper alloy, so they're perfectly preserved, and they date right back to the 1400s. So they're old, and every single one's been handmade. And hang on a minute, one thing I have got on my desk actually is this. There's my thing there, and it's a pinner's bone, and that's what they made them on. You can just see the little grooves where they put the pins, and then that's where they sharpen them and shine them up. So sometimes you find these pinner's bones as well.
Fascinating. Wow. Rose farthings.
Oh, Charles I, hated by many, hated in the day, I recall.
They weren't trusted. He gave licenses to his friends, basically, to produce them, and nobody liked them. And then they were really easy to copy as well, weren't they?
Yeah, people threw them away.
Yeah, so find loads of those. There's a wooden comb, so that's been perfectly preserved. They've got very similar ones they found on the Mary Rose.
Wow.
So they look really similar. Those
they're wooden, so obviously they absorb a lot of the water and sink because wood floats. Obviously, I did get physics GCSE. So they sink, and you find many of those, or?
You do. They're usually encased in the mud, so they've gone in the rubbish, and they've been encased in the mud. But because they're made of boxwood, which is really, really tight grain, they dry out really well. Hardwood dries out fine from the foreshore. If you find something made of softwood, it can sometimes shrink and crack. It's not so great. But I found medieval roof tiles with the pegs still in them.
Wow.
And they've dried out okay.
Now, another little fantastic find, that of a Roman ring intaglio.
Yes, that's the figure of bonus eventus, good outcome. So, that was a good find. That was, I found that in amongst the gravel. Wow. That was just a lucky find, that one. I mean, most of mudlarking's luck. You just have to be in the right place at the right time.
And tuning your eye in, I'm sure. I mean, if I was to come along with you, for instance, you'd be picking things up 10 a penny, and I just think everything else was a pebble, or I'd be picking pebbles up. which leads you straight to the last find, the fossilized sea urchin.
This is really interesting. We find quite a few of them on the Thames because they're natural, but this I found out in the estuary, and it was right near a Bronze Age barrow. And there's no flint, there's nothing like that around, and it's so perfect and so beautiful. I'm just reading a lot into it, but I like to think that perhaps it came out of this washed out barrow and it was part of what went in there, just because it just didn't fit into where I found it.
Stunning nonetheless. Well, they're fantastic. Obviously, thank you to Treasure Hunting Magazine for allowing us to use them pages tonight. But absolutely stunning. Laura, I've got absolutely loads and loads of questions to ask you, but we try to end the show at 9:30 because it's only fair on Luke, who's up at generally 2 a.m, and only fair to the guest and the viewers as well. So I'll briefly ask you one or two. I've got about 20, and one of them is about the book itself. How did that come about?
The book itself, well, I work in publishing, and I never wanted to write a book. It wasn't my ambition to write a book ever. I'm not a frustrated writer at all. As I say, I started the online stuff just because I was stuck at home with twins and I was getting bored, and I wanted some sort of outlet. And so I started putting my stuff online and just finding people to talk to, and it grew and grew and grew. And for the longest time, I did it anonymously. I was just London Mudlark. I didn't tell anyone my name. And then I was contacted by an agent, a literary agent. She asked if I felt like writing a book. And I sort of gave in to her. She's very persuasive. And I wrote a proposal, and she sent it out to, I think it was 15 different publishers. And we got 11 offers straight away. So it was hard to turn down after that. And then, of course, I had to reveal who I was and, sort of become non-anonymous, so to speak. And, then it just sort of went from there.
And are there plans for a follow-up?
There is. I'm doing it at the moment, actually. I'm just coming to the end of it and just doing the finishing touches to the next book, which will be out later this year.
Marvellous. I'll certainly buy that rather than listen to it because I lost a lot in translation.
Yeah,
I read that.
I didn't. Not that one, anyway. I read The Hobbit. Well, we've had a lot of people in the chat room, as well as keeping me abreast of the football scores. Obviously, congratulating you on the book. And one or two have also asked where they can get hold of a copy.
It's available any bookshop, usual online outlets, Amazon, all of those places. You can get it by any way you can buy a book, really.
Fantastic. Is there anything you'd like to add before we go? Can you point people towards your Instagram, to your Facebook, etc.?
Yep. If anyone wants to have a look at the stuff that I find, Instagram's probably the best place to go. It's london.mudlark. I've also done a special Instagram page, especially for the book. So if you do get the book, there is an accompanying Instagram page. It's got 600 plus pictures and videos, all arranged in chapter order. So you can look at it while you're reading. And that one is Lara Maiklem _mudlarking. So
now,
I'm also
if I'd known that, I could have done that while listening to it.
Yeah. I'm also on Twitter and Facebook as London Mudlark. So yes, so join me there.
Fantastic. Well, Laura, it's been an absolute pleasure. As I say, I could sit here and speak to you for hours and hours more, as I'm sure Adrian could, and I'm sure the people watching would love to as well. We'd love to have you back again in the future. Give it a few months' time or what have you, or maybe when it's time that your book's being released, if we could get you on and obviously discuss the new book and what have you, if you'd be willing to do so.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yep.
And hopefully my fibromyalgia will be okay that day, and I'll remember words. So yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's been great.
No,
and I will be sending you a WeTransfer file via email probably tomorrow for some of the things that we were talking about. Wink, wink. And I've given you instructions on how to find the rest as well. So I'll do that tomorrow. It's on my list. Adrian, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, just thank you, Lara, for coming on the show and taking time out, because I think, like, being a metal detectorist, a hobby, we're struggling at the moment, like yourself, and we just source all content we can on people unearthing history. And you've been on hell and all television shows, BBC and etc. So thank you very much for coming on tonight. It's been a privilege. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. And I can actually say the dig is really good. Watch it.
Yes. We didn't get onto that, Dave. That could have been
Yes, I know, but we had so many fantastic pictures to look at, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. But yeah, the Lara, just before we go, was it better than you expected, the dig?
I was very excited about it, and it didn't disappoint me. So yeah, I'm reviewing it on Radio 4 tomorrow for Front Row. Right,
everyone tune in, listen to that, yeah.
And then watch the film.
Then watch the film. It's really, really good. Yeah.
Don't forget Adrian's fantastic T-shirt. You can find that and many others at detectingwareuk.co.uk. And if you're interested in buying anything related to magnet fishing, there you go. Online magnets, Google them. And if you put in the code ARCMDMAG10, you'll get a 10% discount on whatever you're buying. Fantastic. Hopefully we'll have some more news for you for next week about our merchandise, which people have been asking for, but obviously I thought the price was too high, so pulled the store. And don't forget Detector Network, jump on there. And there's lots more things going to be coming out in the next couple of weeks that I know of. So we've got some fantastic things. Next week's guest is Barry John Bowers. Is that right, Adrian? Yes, it is.
I'll be honest.
This is the gentleman who believes he has found the site of the Holy Grail in the UK below a river. So we'll be having him on next week. So a little bit different than normal. The following week, as I said earlier, we'll have Kaylee from History with Kaylee YouTube channel. And the following week will be Dan Spencer from the Searcher magazine. We hope to have the Facebook issues sorted by then. We can only apologise for that again tonight. They've been silly and changed all their settings, which I also found out via the news feed on the website. www.arcmdmag.com for all your latest news, etc. Again, Laura, it's been an absolute privilege to have you on the show, and we look forward to seeing you again and your next book.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Adrian. Pleasure as ever. And thank you, every one of the viewers, and especially to Luke producing in the background. So good night and good luck for Liverpool for the rest of the match. Take care, everyone.